2, 1. And good morning, good afternoon, wherever you are in podcast land. Brandon Cunningham, the real estate doctor here at EXP. Look at this guy, Matt Paul. He does it all. He's got the EXP shirt on. He's much more EXP than I am. It's all good.
It's official.
We had somebody drop in from outer space today, Brad Waldron. He's going to talk about insurance, all the things that you wanted to know but were afraid to ask. I'm thinking, what are we going to talk about insurance? And I looked down and I said, let me tell you what insurance is. See these glasses? I don't know about you, but I lose my glasses all the time. So guess what? I have a second set. Oh, but what if I don't have that? I have a third set.
Look at that. Deep pockets, this guy.
I got to have my glasses. That's called insurance. No, we're going to talk about insurance in ways that you never thought of. But let's start the ball rolling. Tell us about yourself, Brad. Give us the elevator speech.
Yeah, well, first off, thanks for having me, Brendan. I'm really happy to be here. I started in insurance. I was a young man about 18 years ago, a Liberty Mutual agent. Been on the management side for the past 12 years. So the interesting thing, we've shifted from a captive insurance carrier to a broker. And I oversee the Buffalo market. I've got agents, in Jamestown, Batavia, but primarily here in the Buffalo market is the shop that I oversee with Comparion Insurance Agency.
Good for you. You ever hear the expression, I've got a guy? This is my guy. And the reason why I'm with this guy is, I was just saying to folks here before we started, I said, I don't even know if this guy's the cheapest. It doesn't make any difference because I know he's good. I know I pick up the phone and I get an answer. Yeah. That's worth more to me. However, he's also the best in terms of price.
And he's still working for you. I like when agents shop without even you telling them. It's like, hey, I don't like something I see and I'm going to shop it. I've had a lot of experience with agents that won't do that unless you say, please shop it, year over year. So that's off to you on that.
Yeah, well, it's interesting. You didn't hear it. Brendan asked me for a change over the weekend on his insurance, and I looked at it today. I'm like, I don't like that renewal. Yeah. Okay. So we're going to take a look at it. See what we can do.
My little summer car. I'm going to put it on the road. In fact, it's in the it's out of the garage. It's in the driveway, and I just got the registration re-upped and all this kind of stuff. So
summer car, nice.
But so this is what happens when you buy a house. You are not required by law to have insurance. And there's a category of people that buy a home and they don't have insurance. And what do we call those people?
That don't have insurance? Cash buyers.
Or idiots.
Idiots, right?
Okay. Even the cash buyer is going to say, I want to cover my bases here.
Because a lot of lenders are going to require home
But that's different. See, the lender will make it a stipulation that, you want me to lend you $100,000 to buy this house? Fine. We want to make sure, God forbid, the house burns down, that we're covered. Not you, Mr. Owner. We're covered. So insurance is a common sense thing, but although it's not legally required, I don't know too many people that own real estate that don't have it. Yeah. So having said that, there's a process that happens. We sell a house and somebody needs insurance. And I say, well, call your insurance guy. If you don't have one, you can use my guy if you want. He's a good guy. And then what happens then? What do they need when they call you when they buy a house?
So the reality, I'll go back a little bit here, but obviously, in order to close, you need a binder.
A binder. What is it? Because a binder means something different on Long Island than it does here.
Yes.
A binder is when you want to buy the house. You put a binder down, okay, as a sort of good faith deposit. But they use a separate form. But your binder is?
So a piece of paper that says you are covered from an insurance standpoint. As of a certain day, this is what your coverage is. The interesting thing here, binder, a lot of people think a 3-ring binder.
Yes, that's why we're breaking it down so that there's no confusion.
Piece of paper. But without that piece of paper, you can't buy the house.
You can't buy the house. So there's two really crucial pieces of paper before you buy the house. It's called a what?
What's that?
The thing that you need before you buy a house.
Pre-approval.
You got to have a pre-approval letter. Without that, that's your boarding pass. You can't get on the plane
without that.
Without the binder. They don't let you in the airport.
Yep.
So you have a binder. Do you have to give them money?
For the most part, there's two things needed at closing. There's going to be the binder and a paid receipt. Mm-hmm. Paid receipt is basically showing you have paid for 1 year of homeowners insurance
in advance,
covered for the year.
Okay.
So yes, generally speaking, those two things. You'll see some situations where they can pay at closing,
right?
But that's a little more rare.
And I've had a couple clients say, I can't find the binder. I'm like, usually it's a certificate of insurance, right?
Yes.
That's what it'll say.
Certificate of insurance.
So it's this 1-page document, like you said, not a massive, 3-ring binder or anything like that. It's just a certificate.
Yeah. And I'll tell you, it's interesting. Over the past couple of years, like I said, I've been doing this for a long time. I remember there was a world where you had two types of properties. you had a homeowner, and you had a rental property.
Yeah.
That's it. Now it's across the board. You know, you have individuals buying homes to fix up to sell a year later. You have individuals buying a home where they see they see a space and they think, geez, I could Airbnb this.
Yep.
Mhm.
So and you know, we had one last week, three family home. One of those was an individual who's going to live there, buying a house, going to live there.
Owner occupied.
Another one was a rental property.
Mhm.
The third space was a short-term rental, Airbnb.
Wow.
Now, the interesting thing is you mentioned they're looking for a piece of paper. You can easily get a piece of paper that says, hey, you have insurance. But truth be told, we had a hard time trying to place that home because insurance companies don't know how to write it yet.
Yeah, you need different policies for each,
Right.
each
Or
renter
you need
long term.
Yeah, or you need a carrier that's going to allow you to do all three in one.
Wow.
So I think the interesting thing is it's very easy for somebody to get the wrong policy and never even realize it until there's a claim and they find out, hey, the contract didn't say anybody else was living there.
And then they get really pissed off.
Yeah. So if you do need
And
a
rightfully
creative
so.
option like that, you would want to go to a broker that can search multiple options.
100%. Yeah, 100%. I would, and I'm not. Every insurance company has their space, and I think when you think about car insurance, it's a little more cookie cutter.
Yep.
800 number can get the job
Right.
done. But when you look at homeowners insurance, I would not go to an 800 number on that one because I think a couple things happen. The closing dates ever change?
Oh yeah.
Don't get it started.
Nope, that's written in stone. Come on.
Right. That's a pain. Finding the binder. Sometimes they don't know. They're doing insurance all over the place.
Yeah.
You get on the phone with somebody with a 800 number, they may be down in Texas. So all of a sudden they see all these catastrophes. Sorry.
I love that.
I'm using jargon.
Yeah, good.
But they see these catastrophes and they think, well, geez, we got to give this person hurricane coverage. We got to give them earthquake coverage. But they're forgetting water backup coverage, which is our number one claim here in Buffalo because that's optional. So it's not as cookie cutter. And I think the main thing a lot of people do is they, hey, listen, I've got auto insurance with, Geico. I'm going to call them and get home. Not to say they're not doing a decent job, but they may miss certain things.
They may not be protecting you fully, and
super important.
Yep.
I want to ask a specific question. I had a deal last year. It was an easy deal, relatively easy deal, but there was something weird that happened. The seller of the house, they had some storm damage, ice damage, and they replaced the gutters.
Mm-hmm.
And they did a great job. They replaced the gutters like $3,800 and done, over and out. The buyer of the property is trying to get insurance, and they go for their binder, and they run a clue report.
Correct.
Okay, standard.
Yep. Every time you get an insurance policy, a clue report is run. That is just simply, did that individual have past claims or did that property have past claims?
And that's what it
That's
showed
the
up.
person.
Okay. And we said, oh, yeah. And it got weird in that they didn't want to accept the photos.
Mm-hmm.
They didn't want to accept the guy's word that he had done the work. They didn't want to accept the fact that he showed the paid receipt and the contract. And then they wanted to go and have him sign an affidavit.
Really?
Was that unusual or overkill? Or it was the first time I'd seen that.
Wow.
An affidavit? I said, no, get out of here. Now you're being stupid.
More paperwork?
Come on. I'd love to say it's uncommon. It's not.
Huh?
I think what we've seen over the past few years is you're seeing a lot of insurance, and again, you see across the country, for whatever reason, there's more natural disasters, natural weather events than we've seen in a long time.
Yep.
So what's happening there is insurance companies are tightening up and saying, well, we'll take this, we won't take this, we'll cover this, we won't cover that. But what you run into a lot of times with your larger carriers, no one ever, I hope there's no underwriters watching, but no one ever wants to talk
Screw them. This is the real story. You don't care.
No one ever wants to talk to an underwriter.
Yeah.
Right? But the reality is we have some regional carriers that we can talk to the underwriter. You have your larger carriers. They do a broad stroke and say, hey, we won't take this. We won't take this. If there's something they don't like, they'll just cancel it.
No gray area, black, white. Done.
Correct.
Yep. Okay.
So on our end, we've got some good regional carriers where the underwriters know us. Hopefully they like us, but we can make a call and say, listen, here's the situation. Here's what the here's what the client homeowner is going to do. They're going to do it by this date. Can we work with them on this? And if you can have those conversations, that's super important in our world. And I think, that's really when you look at it, sometimes if you're dealing with one of those larger carriers that may have your auto insurance, you can't have that conversation. No. They're going to send you a form and say, do this, or they're just going to straight up cancel you.
Wow.
Yeah.
Oh my God.
So it's all just like what we talk about. It's your network. You know,
Yeah,
you
yeah.
really, it's so important to have a good network.
You touched upon something about the closing date. He pulled the rest of his hair out because it's a
I don't have
bundle.
much left.
Okay.
Oh man.
We speak about the closing date almost ad nauseum. It's a target date. It's a pregnancy date. So when, let's say my closing date is May 31st, just for the sake of argument, I get a binder for my insurance. Should I make May 31st the date?
So
It only says that on the contract.
yes.
Okay, so you know that's not the closing date.
So I'll give you a little behind the scenes. In order for an insurance, this is going to get boring.
That's okay.
I'm gonna try to keep it. In order for an insurance company,
I'll set fire to my hair.
just fall asleep if you need to. Okay. In order for an insurance company to produce a binder, you have to initiate a policy. So no policy in force, no binder. So what we have to do on our end is we need to say, okay, this policy is in force effective May 31st. Here's your binder for it. Can't give a binder until that because technically there's
step
no
one, step two. It's what it is. Yep.
So that closing date changes, and it's like, hey, closing date's pushed back a week. You know, it's pushed.
All right, so
forward a
now
week.
it actually closed on June 6th, which is D-Day, which is a good day to close any day. And so I guess they paid for insurance on a house they didn't own, and so what?
We have to call the insurance company or work with them and say, hey, we need to cancel this policy, start a new one effective this date. The customer's got to sign a new application. It's a whole new policy.
Do they really have to do that? I mean,
Yes.
they just can't take it from this and pay a week in advance?
They cannot, because that insurance contract stipulates this day there is this coverage effective.
On your ownership.
Correct.
So if you're
Oh,
not
you're not the owner.
You're not the owner.
So the most important piece of that contract changes when you change the date. So it's got to be a whole new insurance policy.
Okay, so we have to make sure that we notify the insurance company immediately.
As soon as we get
Soon
the
as
we get the closing date.
Okay.
Yep.
And then it'll change again.
Yep. Yeah. So you guys have a lot of paperwork like we do.
Probably more.
Really?
Frankly, yeah.
Wow.
I mean, but yeah, they got actuarial tables and all that stuff.
Yeah.
We just have wooden tables.
Yeah.
What is your friend Flo?
Yes.
The progressive lady.
Love it.
Always talking about bundling.
Yes.
Okay, and I'm thinking, that sounds like sort of like a Yankee term in the Middle Ages where you'd sleep together, bundling. But you remember that? Okay. But
That's exactly what they're talking about.
You knew it. You called
so insurance, is that a good thing? Bundling? Is it the work of the devil? Is it a scam? What's going on?
It's super important.
Okay.
I mean, I think. Listen,
So she's right.
You do it, and I would only not bundle when you don't have another option. You know, like for instance, say you have a home with a bad outbuilding, bad roof, and you only have one carrier that'll take it. You can't bundle. Yeah. You know, but if you have your auto here, home here, you're going to see a 20% discount right off the top for the most part with homeowners insurance companies, plus 20% on the auto. So you put it together, you get your best rates there.
That's a good deal.
Yes.
And so like I have a motorcycle, and my carrier, they told me to go with Geico. For a motorcycle.
Yeah.
Said because motorcycle coverage is just, normally bananas if it's not with one of the big carriers.
Yeah, you start to learn. I mean, I know motorcycle comes in, Geico or Progressive is usually good.
Yeah, because it's $100. $100 a year, and it's not going to do anything for your homeowners or your auto or anything if you go with it, right?
Yeah.
But yeah, you can't compete with it.
I don't know.
Is that interesting?
There's a caveat though. Think about this. So if somebody just calls their car insurance carrier and says, I want to bundle my homeowner's insurance in there, say they were a renter before. They have a policy where they were a renter. Maybe they're getting married. Someone buys a home, they're getting married. Not uncommon.
Yep.
So now they're looking to combine everything. They are still on that initial policy seen as a renter. So it's in their best interest to shop at that moment.
Yep.
Don't just call who you have your car insurance with, because they're not going to re-rate you as a homeowner now. You know, they're not going to re-rate all the things that go into that point of sale. So you're not going to see the best discount. So if you're buying a new house, shop your auto at the same time.
Yeah, that's a great idea.
Hands down, because you could be leaving hundreds with the insurance market now, maybe thousands on the table.
Yeah. I mean, just with what bundling mine, I'm sure it's a lot of money.
It has really gone up a lot, significantly in the last couple of years.
It's gone up crazy in places like Florida. They're having all kinds of trouble because places are almost uninsurable.
Well,
right?
there's only limited number of companies that do flood insurance down there, right?
Yeah.
I've heard like four companies total. So they have a lock, they have a hold on the market.
Yeah.
And if you want it, you can only use these companies. And it's tough. Same with California with the wildfires and
flood
we see here
insurance.
too.
You do flood insurance?
We do flood. Yes.
Okay.
We have multiple options.
Okay, it's typical flood insurance. How does that work? Because a lot of people don't understand it. I always say, listen, you want to buy a house, and it requires flood insurance, you might want to do this. Look at a different house.
Yep.
Is that wrong?
We have a lot of floodplains around here, so
We have a
that's
lot of
great
floodplains
question.
around here.
Yeah, a lot.
Flood is so much better than it used to be.
Okay.
So it used to be one option.
Flood
It was
insurance.
the FEMA-
Flood, no, not so much.
Floods are
Yeah,
not
that's okay.
bad.
That's still bad.
Not good.
Floods still kind of
You gotta wear your trunks.
No matter how you look at it. Yep.
yeah. Flood insurance is so much better. For the longest time, there was just a FEMA option through the government.
Mhm.
You go to Allstate,
Yep.
State Farm, Liberty Mutual, doesn't matter. It's the same cost. This
Right.
is the policy. There's a ton of private flood carriers now. So I wouldn't just walk away from it. But the difference there could be $4,000 here, $900 here. So get the quote.
So you have
And
seen
that's-
policies under $1,000 for
Oh yeah,
flood?
yeah,
Wow.
but it comes down to, again, I can name, we have Aon Edge, Neptune, we got a carrier Johnson & Johnson that gives us 6 different flood options. Then we have our FEMA option. So we can really shop flood insurance more than ever.
And that's not a one-time thing. You pay that every year.
Pay that, you pay it every year.
Okay.
Oh yeah, flood
So,
insurance.
a lot of people think it's a one-time thing.
Oh, it's additional to homeowners.
It's additional.
Yep.
It's additional.
Yeah, unless you're rezoned, you're paying that forever.
Yeah, but it was one of the things I had to learn about when I first moved up there from New York City. They don't have floods down.
No.
Actually, they do, but
Yeah.
they don't care. You're done. I mean, you're now you're a
Surrounded
homeless
by water.
person, right?
That's what it is.
But yeah, my first, I bought a farm, but it was on top of a mountain in East Aurora. It was the second highest point in Erie County. It was 1,500 feet above sea level, and somebody's talking about flood insurance. I said, well, that's one thing I'll never need up here because I'm on top of a freaking mountain. And then they said, well, actually, no, there's creeks over there. And I didn't realize how topography works.
Yep.
You have streaks and creeks all over the place up here.
Yep.
And
And if you border that, you're most likely
You're
in a
cooked.
floodplain. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, if there's been a flood in the past 100 years, it's a flood zone.
yeah. Well, Amherst is a 100-year floodplain.
Yeah.
Yeah.
When I first moved up and I found out about it, I said, well, what are you building houses on a
Yeah.
flood? And they said, yeah. I said, well, aren't you concerned? Nah. I said, when was the last time it flooded? Oh, God, it hasn't flooded here for about 90 years. I said, let me set my watch.
Yeah, right? It's gonna
10
happen,
years,
yeah.
I'll get my trunks. I'll be up.
Well, and there's parts of Amherst with that sandy soil, the sandy
Yeah.
loam, that there's sinking basements and everything else. You know, there's
Oh,
a
yeah.
lot of areas that have issues because they built on that,
Yeah,
floodplain.
Something.
So,
Yeah, it's a
makes sense.
complicated thing, but thank God. I think one of the things that makes for a successful transaction is that you have a good local real estate agent, good local real estate attorney, but a good local real estate insurance guy who's a broker and can shop the market for you, because you're not just getting that one set of products and you're stuck with it.
You know, I'll tell you what we're running into a lot, which can impact your world as well. A lot of lenders out there these days. And you follow where the best
yeah.
rates are.
Yeah.
But we're seeing lenders coming back just asking for things on binders that we've never seen. You know, oh, I need this on the binder. And it's like, well, and again, I've been doing this a long time. And I'm like, I've never heard that.
Yeah.
You know, so that really, and again, if they can't secure the financing, get the binder they need, deal's done.
Yeah.
So I'd say probably every week lately, we're seeing a name of a lender that maybe I've never heard of asking for something that I've never heard of. So our job is to figure that out.
Let me ask,
Yeah.
you may not know the answer to this. Are the number of the lenders that are sort of giving you more unusual questions, are they online lenders?
I think so, because I've never heard of them. And
Okay,
I've never
that's
seen
the thing. That's
yeah.
why you want to work with a local lender.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
And I always, I don't want to mention any of them by name, but you know who I'm talking about, the online lender. A lot of times they're a problem because they don't know the taxes, and every town's got different friggin' taxes.
Yeah,
It changes everything,
And it could drastically vary.
and it can change your payments by $500 or $600 a month.
And you can't talk to them either. It's
Nope.
like they got a checklist. Hey, I need this on the binder. I need this. And if they can't get that, that's it. So
And if they have an 800 number, they're not going to answer. So
Yeah.
that's why I say you got to deal with somebody local and knows how to
Yes.
pick up the phone. I got to, So, okay, well that reconfirms what I was suspecting. Other issues that are, what's going on in Florida? Can I buy something in Florida or not? Do you handle Florida?
We do some Florida.
Okay.
I have about 3-4 agents that are licensed in Florida.
Okay.
They're just, like you had mentioned, it's a tight market.
Yeah.
And what I mean by that is, if you're an insurance company and you feel like you can't bring in the premiums to cover your losses, well, what's your option? You just stop the bleeding and say, we're only going to take certain risks.
Right.
So in Florida, obviously, if you're down there, the hurricane risk is outrageous. Out west, you see the wildfire risk, everything going there.
Yep.
You got random hailstorms happening in the Midwest and
tornadoes
Texas,
and stuff.
right?
Yeah.
So I think you're just at a point where insurance companies have to make a decision. do we raise our rates through the roof and will the state let you do that?
Yeah.
Or do you just decide we're only going to take certain amounts of business? So
It's a business. You got to make a business
Yeah,
decision.
yeah.
I get
So it's
that.
tight.
I really do get
it's
that.
tight. I would say if you're looking at properties in Florida, same thing. You have to have someone with options
Mm-hmm.
because you will always find an option somewhere.
Should
I think that's the key.
Should I buy in Florida?
Inland?
Inland. Okay.
Inland.
Okay.
Yeah.
As it turns out,
Yeah.
my stepdaughter-in-law, she has a house. Technically it's in West Palm,
Yeah.
but it's about 45 minutes from the ocean. It's
Yeah.
inland. I said, one thing for sure, it's a pain in the ass because you got to drive everywhere. Right?
Oh yeah.
But and it's a beautiful house, $2 million and all this kind of stuff. But I said the one thing they don't have to worry about is even if there's a hurricane, they're going to be fine here because they're inland.
Yeah.
You know?
Yep. And now the houses are flooding the market, and what do we say? It was a 13-month inventory down
In Florida.
Yeah.
Mhm.
As opposed to 25 days.
I mean, now is a good time to buy if you
Oh,
do
yeah.
if you do want to risk it a little bit with the weather. There's a lot of inventory. You could probably find a good deal.
I keep getting all kinds of emails. The price is coming down. I mean, Florida's
Yeah.
Florida's
I saw a $5.7 million house relist with a price reduction to 2.5.
Whoa!
Yeah, real nice house right on a.
That's not what's happening here, ladies and
No,
gentlemen. Our
no.
prices still
It's going the
continue to go up.
opposite, yep.
In fact, I was telling Matt before we started the show that I had somebody that I referred to one of our associates in Vermont, and they bought a house and they paid 12% over the asking price. And yes, it was competitive.
Wow.
And so it's in a lot of places. We're still seeing over the asking price.
Yeah, it's very competitive
Normal.
here.
It's normal here. Yeah.
Yep.
And I always figure 10-15% is where you're going to at least be.
Yeah.
And what's interesting is when I say that now, people don't go like that anymore. They just kind of expect it.
Yeah,
So-
because it's been like this for several years now.
Mhm.
So yeah.
All right, final stages of this descent pattern. Take it away. What do you want to
Please
say?
like, follow, subscribe. Thanks for tuning in.
Brad, how do we get a hold of you?
Give me a call. Office 677-2734. Comparion Insurance. I got about 15, 20 agents in the area.
Beautiful. And you know
Excellent.
what? Does a good job. And anyone that you ever see come on this show, we're only bringing you the best
Yep.
because that's the way we like to work. We like to have people that are dependable. Brendan Cunningham, the Real Estate Doctor, saying, tune in next time.
Thanks.